Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard for the Travel in Time Show. Today I'm at Fort Ticonderoga. So Ticonderoga, I learned, sort of a little bit of a bastardized name from the Indian version of a word that sounded like Ticonderoga, I guess. But it means the land in between two waters. And it's over here, you're going to have Lake Champlain, and then you won't be able to see it from here, but on the other side is going to be Lake George. So it's the land in between the two waters is what Ticonderoga means. And here in Ticonderoga, the only pencil that the school district allows is the Ticonderoga pencil. Now, it's such a fascinating history here at Fort Ticonderoga and a very, very important history for the United States, especially when we're talking about the Revolutionary War. All right? Now, in 1775, the funny thing is, the people here didn't know that we were actually in a war. You know, Lexington and Concord, all that, the siege of Boston. They didn't realize that we were at war. Word travels very slowly in the old days. So they didn't know we were at war. And there was a bunch of cannon up here that George Washington wanted for the siege of Boston. All right? So Connecticut, they commissioned Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys to come up here and take this fort from the unknown, unsuspected British, and believe it or not, their wives and children are here. All right, it's a skeleton crew. And then in Massachusetts, Boston commissions Benedict Arnold, who's actually a Connecticut boy, and they commission him and they send him up here. So Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold are on their way up here to an unsuspected British skeleton crew holding this fort. When they get up here, they catch the British sleeping. Again, they're with their wives and children, the skeleton crew, and they've got no choice but to just hand over the fort. There's nothing they could do. They just got to hand over the fort. So now we have this fort right here, Fort Ticonderoga. We have it, and this is key. Very, very strategic. We take the cannons. Knox comes up here, he takes the cannons and brings them back to Boston, puts them up on the hill overlooking the Boston Bay, and the British have nothing they can do except now evacuate British and give Boston and give Boston back to the colonists. Okay? The prisoners here, interesting story, they were marched, the British skeleton crew here and their families, they were marched to Hartford, Connecticut, where they were held prisoner over there. Now, this is key. The British know they need this fort back. So they start putting together an expedition to come here and to take this fort back. But over the next year, the colonists are fortifying this fort. You can't see it, but on the other side of the fort, they create this enormous earth patchwork of what I would call like above ground trench systems using trees. And the amount of work they did was amazing. And they laid it right on top of the old French lines that were there in 1758 that held the British back during a battle at that point. And the Americans just kind of copied what the French did back then, but make everything bigger and better. They dig in and they work their butts off for a whole year to get this place going. Because 1776 now, a year later, is key. All right? Washington's having a real hard time down south of here. He had to give up New York City. He's, I've been on the run from the British. The British are pretty much having their way with the Continental Army. And if the British can take this fort, it might be lights out for George Washington and his Continental Army. This would definitely give control of the Hudson River to the British. It would cut off New England, who they considered to be the troublemakers in this whole thing. And the Revolutionary War might be over. Well, when the British get here, in 1776, they see how well fortified this place is and how it's going to be impossible to take this place from the colonists. So they turn around and they leave. This might be one of the most important battles never fought. Because if the British had fought that battle and had won that battle, the Revolutionary War might have been over. And the fact that we sent them packing without them firing a shot because they knew they couldn't win is what allowed the colonists and George Washington's Continental Army to survive another year. Now, eventually, the colonists here, they do kind of leave this place, most of them. They go south and they help George Washington's Continental Army. They help their state militias where, actually, believe it or not, most of the fighting took place. And the British do come back in 1777, right? And they do overrun the skeleton crew that's here. History, I guess, repeats itself, I guess, in many different ways, right? Mark Twain said history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Well, yeah, the American skeleton crew is overrun by the British in 1777. But at this point, it doesn't really matter as much because George Washington is racking up victories, south of here. And the Americans are going to win. The French are in the war now. We've had the Saratoga battle. I mean, the Americans are going to win now. So for the British, it's a little too late. Okay? So now, what's the, let me show you something right here. Over my shoulder, that's Mount Defiance. Up there where we had cannons shooting down. Over here, it's Mount Independence, right? That's where most of the New England soldiers were living and building their stations and working and fighting. And again, Fort Ticonderoga is right behind me. It's huge. You can only see a little teeny bit of it. And way behind it was the earthworks that kept the British from trying to attack via land. Okay, so now what is the lesson, the leadership lesson here? I would say the leadership lesson here is initiative. Take initiative, like Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold did in that 1775 when they came in, took this fort and took the cannons. Take initiative, take bold initiative, and then work hard. Do the work, all right? There's one thing I've certainly learned about this place is an incredible, almost unbelievable amount of work went into building this place, fortifying this place, and every single day making it more impenetrable so that the British wouldn't attack during that 1776 campaign and would just leave, all right? And thus allowing us to continue to fight and George Washington to eventually win the Revolutionary War. Right? It takes a lot of work to be a leader. There's no doubt about it. Right? Now, I don't know where I'm going to be next time. I imagine somewhere in New England or Northeast. But wherever I'm going to be, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a great show. And thank you for the time you spent with me, where I mix travel, history, and leadership lessons with me, Dan Blanchard. Take care now.